Wow. I feel like, how does it not? You know what I mean?
This is such a loaded question. It's something that I've realized recently is that for most of my life, I was very much living in a trauma response without realizing it. So my identity was really integrated with the trauma that I'd experienced, but I didn't realize that. So it was kind of trauma, things that had happened to me, influencing my identity, which then influences my mental health. And I didn't actually actualize that until very recently.
I had anxiety from very young, since I was like 4 or something, I think. And that made it hard, I guess, socially, like hard to make friends and enjoy the social side of school, especially high school. It was quite bad for me. I also had PTSD in year 12. Or like that's when it started. So that was really hard doing year 12. And then today I'm living with a bunch of mental illnesses, so depression, anxiety, PTSD, and borderline personality disorder. Yeah, it can be really difficult. It can be hard to get out of bed some days.
Someone like myself, I've got quite bad anxiety, and I've got a couple of anxiety disorders that I don't really know the name of, but they've said I have. It's all right mental health wise, but living in such a remote area can pose struggles to mental health, as there isn't really much people around my age. I don't really have many opportunities socially, especially in lockdown.
I think identity plays a very big role in mental health, and especially like self-perception, how we see ourselves and the way that we kind of think. I think it took me like growing up and becoming an adult to really see like the impact that my culture and like my upbringing, just as a South Sudanese woman, for instance, or even like a Black woman, or an African woman, because our experiences are quite similar. It plays a very big role in mental health. I think
being quite a high achiever and being someone who thrives off performance, my mental health has been affected by my want for perfectionism in a lot of ways, and also being in the quite competitive environment. But also then around my queer identity, coming to terms with like self-acceptance and self-love is something that has really impacted on my mental health journey in ways that I don't think I even fully recognized when I was younger. But as I've gotten a little bit older and a little bit more self-aware, it's really come to the front that journey of self-acceptance in my sexuality has had a big impact on my self-acceptance throughout the rest of my life as well.
But also that living in such a rural area, the closest access I have to like a youth worker or a social worker is an hour away or more depending on traffic and stuff like that. The neighbouring town Hamilton, which is about 10,000 people, and there's not any youth workers or mental health workers or nothing to actually help with mental health in the region.
I have always struggled with mental health issues from a young age. I was diagnosed with anxiety, depression, as well as OCD. I've always struggled with it, but from the beginning of the pandemic, it has become a lot worse. Things that I never used to be fazed by, like big groups of people outside, not even necessarily socializing with me, but big groups outside. Like I struggle now. Like I can't even go out like and see a big group because I get stressed about it. Like, but yeah, mental health has always been something that just has always affected me. Yeah.
I think my identity of an Indian man has influenced my views and my experience of mental health in a bad way when I was young, because in my community, mental health is not something that's looked upon. It's very taboo. We don't talk about it in our day-to-day lives. We don't, I guess, see a good representation of it on media. And because of that, as a young person, I didn't see mental health as something that I should associate myself with in a good or a bad way. If I was having any issues, I wouldn't be like, no, it's not mental health. It's probably something else. I didn't see it as a real issue. But now that I'm a bit older, that I learned, I guess, why I thought like that, I think I view mental health as something that I'm something that I'm fond on and I want to learn on, because growing up, it's not something that I was taught.
From like childhood, how mental health is shaped and how we're taught about mental health. It's always from a very negative perspective. You're crazy, what mental illness, just go do the dishes, or you know what I mean? Like it's like frowned upon to have a mental illness because they see it as like a disability or like you not being fit or something like that. And I feel like as Africans, especially African parents, their biggest goal, and they see like a lot of pride in their children. So for your child to have depression or, some type of like a mental illness, it kind of feels like an attack on them for some reason. Rather than facing it, they try and like sweep it under the rug. So I feel like my culture didn't really shape my understanding of what mental health is.
Yeah, there is a bit of mental health support at school, but again, living in regional areas, there isn't much resources for the schools to push out for better mental health, and whatever resources they have, it's a struggle to support every student.
I'd say mental health has affected me by memories, connections, and not being able to be fully there and immersing myself in experiences that I wish had a happy memory with.
Studying online, it's just kind of, you feel alone all the time. I've diagnosed with depression, I think, yeah, and with intrusive thoughts. So it's like thoughts that you don't want in your mind and stuff like that. It just comes at you and you can't concentrate. It's like your brain running on overdrive on things that you don't want to be on.
I would definitely say growing up in a household with a brother and sister similar ages, like we always spoke about how we were feeling and we're always there for each other even till this day, which has been super helpful, as well as within high school and primary school. Raised around friends from different backgrounds, even though mental health may have not been spoken in their household, we always still tended to speak about it, not directly, but more so indirectly. So always checking up on one another, or like even just hugging that other person and being there for that comfort.
It's affected me and like my family's connections when we had rough spots where we like weren't fully invested in each other, and it was just, I don't know, I'd say downpouring separated us, and I guess just made everything more difficult over the years.